Hey everybody. Okay, since it's a big topic right now, I'm going to weigh in on my thoughts to what's being called the Montgomery brawl and its aftermath. Um, it's complex. I mean, on the surface, I fully support black liberation and the solidarity shown um, among that local black community with each other to help out one of their own when getting abused and beaten on, by a group of white folks. Totally support that. Um, the aftermath this is more complicated, a lot more complicated. Um, and it's not to say that there wasn't just weird stuff on both sides. I've heard some theories that it was staged as some kind of psyop. That may be so, but if it did, it probably kind of backfired because there's been a lot more solidarity from white folks with the black community than usual over it. So if it was a psyop, probably failed. Um, but where things are off to me is the chair memes. Okay, and this hits a lot different for me than most people. I studied martial arts from about age 15 to age 21. I'd never, I'm an average sized guy now, but I'd been small growing up and I wasn't athletic. So, I had to learn how to protect myself. Um, I even got to the point where I did some amateur fighting. Um, what specifically I did, I'm not going to mention. So if I ever have to use anything, I want it to be a nice surprise. What I do and don't know. Um, but I have some training. I'm only really revealing that much now because I think I have a perspective that might be helpful and might be pertinent. Um, but I've only had 3 altercations in my adult life where I had to get physical, and 2 of them where it was just restraining someone who was trying to pound on someone else. The only time I ever actually had to defend myself was against someone with a folding chair. Um, and it was not one of the type chairs used in the brawl that are plastic except for the metal frame. This was a much heavier all metal folding chair. Um, Here's what happened. I worked as a projectionist, so didn't have I was only 19 years old. As a projectionist, you're not making enough to afford a car. So I'd be walking about almost 5 miles home, which hey, I was young, I could do that then. Um, Still probably could, but it would wear on me a bit more. Um, but yeah, and about maybe a mile or a little more from home was a Harris Teeter, which I don't know if they're still this way, but at the time this was a 24-hour Harris Teeter. I'm not sure if they're still a 24-hour place. Um, and well, I'd probably shopped there 100 times or so over my stint as a projectionist on the way home. Um, this one night is the one time I can remember exactly what I bought, which was a 2 liter bottle of root beer and a average sized container of Parmesan cheese. Um, I had spaghetti and sauce at home. Didn't have anything to drink, and wanted some Parmesan cheese. Hey, um, so I'm about a mile from, the Harris Teeter was maybe a little over a mile, about maybe half a mile from home. And the road I'm on, it has to pass behind, it passes behind a very rich um, hotel, or at least a very, very upscale hotel. Um, and so there were these, well, I'll call kids. So they were, I was only 19. I would have estimated this crowd at about 16 or 17, but it's not like I asked. So they're probably there with their parents. And if anybody's wondering about their race, yes, they were black. Although I don't think the incident I'm about to describe had any racial motivation. So two of them split off and start, as I'm like walking past, start walking towards me. Um, and they're like, "Hey, what's up?" So I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?" And they're like, "What you got in the bag?" I'm like, "Yeah, just some groceries." Like, you know, look, like the bag was loose enough that I could just kind of hold it up and say, "Look, a bottle of root beer, thing of Parmesan." And like, "Can we have it?" I'm like, "Well, dude, I'm kind of poor, that's all I got. But hey, I'm about a half a mile from my place. You want to walk back with me? Pour y'all some drinks." And they're like, "No, we want to have it." I'm like, "No, can't have it. That's the way you're gonna be." At that point, one of them reaches for the bag, trying to grab it from me. I pull it away, and when he does that, the other one of them punches me in the face. Fortunately, I had been in training at the time, and I'd been hit harder in training, so I wasn't really phased by that, especially with the adrenaline that kicked in right afterward. And so I'm just giving them the best you got kind of look. And they're not trying to continue after me. I mean, they're following me. At that point, I have my eyes on them. I'm walking, but moving away, but not turning my back. And there's just a lot of bravado. At that point, there's just a lot of bravado talk, like they're trying to egg me on. Both are a little bit smaller than me. And granted, I was skinnier then, but they're trying to egg me on, and I don't care how tough you are. 2-on-1, not good odds. Even if at least one of them can punch worth of shit. So, I'm just walking backwards away, keeping my eyes on them. They're doing a lot of bravado talk. I'm remaining quiet, letting them run their mouths. Eventually, they just keep almost what you call stalking, and yelling. But I'm not going to charge in unless I get, unless attacking one of them allows the other one an easy shot at my back. Eventually, we pass a home that had folding chairs out on the lawn. One of them, like I said, this was not the little small ones you saw in the Montgomery brawl video that were plastic except for the frame. These were much thicker. These had a much thicker frame, and they were all metal. So one of them runs and grabs one, has it folded up. And at this point, I I'm in full-on survival mode. The other one, stupidly, rather than like do a coordinated effort, is just after he grabs the chair and just runs more into back into my vicinity, is just standing behind the one with the chair, going, "Hit him, hit him, hit him." Now, when someone has a big, heavy weapon like that, your best odds are to try and stay just out of their range, because if they have to swing it at you, they're going to and they miss, they're going to overcommit. And then you can just move in and own them. And I am at that point ready to kill. I don't think most people have been ready to kill. Most people do not know what that is. If you think ready to kill is being heated with anger, you've never been ready to kill. When you're ready to kill, you are as emotionless as you will ever get. It's scary afterwards. At the time, you're ice cold. I had no compunctions about killing this person. It's just survival. You're not thinking about any legalities. You're not thinking about remembering details for authorities. You don't even care about any of that. You're like, when this guy swings and overextends, I'm going to go in and kill him. It's that cold. Once the incident's passed, you get uncold real quick, but you're cold. If you think that rage and anger are the urge to kill, you're wrong. Because they're not, even though that can escalate into an incident where an action might be taken that results in severe injury or death. It's not the urge to kill. Because really, when you get down to it, that's the urge to beat someone into empathy. I'm not saying I don't have part of that too. And there have been people in my life I've wanted to hog tie, beat the shit out of them, make them beg, either me or someone I cared about, or just ex-innocent person. For life. Certainly, if I could get away with it legally, I'd happily do it to one of these killer cops who's killed black or brown people. Put them in front of a person of color and make them beg for their life after having the shit beat out of them. You want to make them feel that kind of rage. It's like you want to make somebody else feel as powerless as maybe you have, or a victim has. But when you have the urge to kill, no, it's not heated at all. It's cold. And this guy had a weapon that could have potentially killed me, because he looked like he was going to swing it at my head. And he wasn't going to do what you see in the Montgomery brawl video where they're hitting with the guy's hitting with the flat end. I could tell from the position he had, he was going to slice. That hits you in the head, you can die. Maybe not on the skull. Yeah, you'll survive that. If it hits you in the temple, side of the cheekbone, yeah, it could kill you. Hits you in the jaw, you'll probably live, but you're not going to eat very easily for a while. And that's just the first shot. If you're probably incapacitated, then they can keep pounding on you. So I am literally ready to kill this person. Fortunately, he made a big mistake. Getting greedy, not wanting to get too close, because I was still out of range, instead of swinging it, he threw it. It was at my head, right at the level that, it was going then straight rather than to the side, so it would have probably hit the eye. No, it would have hurt like hell. Potential knockout, but not fatal. But and it was the only time in my life that I got a case of heightened time awareness. If you don't know what that is, that's what you've heard people talk about being in really deadly situations where it seems like time slows down. That happened. The chair literally seemed to just float slowly in the air towards me. So I did a standard high block, which I felt I was doing at a pretty average speed, but because of my heightened time awareness, it probably looked like I did it lightning quick. And it hit it hit my forearm. Left an abrasion a good 5 or 6 inches, but I was adrenalated. I barely felt it. It was like a bee sting. I wouldn't say it hurt like hell, but it hurt more the next day. But no breakage. But it hit my arm. It hit at an angle so that it bounced off of it behind me. Several. It was good 2 or 3 yards behind me too. It was thrown with enough force that that's how it landed. Um, After that, they ran. When he didn't have his weapon no more, both of them ran. I mean, if you've seen the Casper, you ever see the Casper cartoons where, and they realize Casper's a ghost, and it's, they just lean back, a ghost. Like, I mean, the whole body just goes straight as a board, but they're leaning back. Yeah, it was just like that, except they didn't turn all white clothing included, like you see in the Casper cartoons. They did that and then just ran. At that point, it's like my time awareness kind of reversed. So after I see them like this, next thing I know, they're a good, 15, 20 feet away from me. I don't know if that's, technically, I don't know if it's because my time awareness sped up rather than slowed down to compensate, or if they got their own case of heightened time awareness from their own fear and ran particularly fast. For the first several strides. Suppose you could argue it either way. Ultimately, we'll probably never know unless, these folks see this video and want to be like, hey man, that was you. Hey, I mean, I don't have no hard feelings no more. I mean, we were young, it's a long time, nobody got hurt. So if these guys see it and want to talk to me, hey, it might be really interesting and good for us, even if in kind of a fucked up way. But, yeah, so, well, I guess their telling of the story would let me know which scenario happened there. But other than, from an objective analysis, there's no way for me to know. Yeah. So at that point, I see they're running away, and I'm like, okay, fights. The threat's passed. They're running. I'm okay. And I make sure I see them get out of visual range, and then I turn and just start walking home. And at that point, once I'm able to turn and start walking home, then my emotions come back. I'm no longer in survival mode, and you start doing the spazzing to shake it off. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, go watch some nature shows that show a gazelle that almost gets eaten by a lion and manages to escape. Once they know the lion is out of sight, you'll see the gazelle doing a little kind of, twitching kind of shit for 10 seconds or so. I think my twitching lasted a little longer, but anyway, yeah, I was twitching. It's how you kind of process the trauma. Unfortunately, oftentimes, whereas animals always twitch if they manage to live through something like that, humans often don't, and that's really where a lot of PTSD comes from. So I don't have lingering trauma from it. So when I see the chair memes, I'm not triggered, but it does. It's a stroll down memory lane, because something like that, where when you get that experience of having the urge to kill, that's not something you forget. It just isn't. And I go home. The other day I'm telling my roommate about it, and he's like, well, wanting a description. And he's like, when he says they're black, he's like, oh, we should go back there, and if they're there again, we can get away with beating the shit out of them. And I'm like, no, man. It's just like, I survived. I came out okay, other than a scar on my arm. They didn't even manage to take my groceries from me. I still got home with those. Never even actually had to drop that bag because I, had the bag in my right hand, I blocked my left. I'm a lefty. Um, just well, also because they swung at righty, so naturally my left would be the blocking side, um, as it was. So, but I'm like, nah, you know, I did what I had to do to survive, and there's no more threat. There's no point in trying to go back or escalate the situation. It's done. And for me, um, but yeah, the chair memes are a stroll down memory lane. Um, Now, what made me kind of think, okay, it's time to talk about this. It's time to make this video. It was a comrade of mine on Facebook put up a post like saying, hey, I think she's a black woman. Um, Put up a post saying, hey, I like all these chair memes and the show of solidarity, but as a strategy, we gotta rethink this. Picking up a weapon could be, or even a makeshift one could be serious legal trouble. Um, but especially for black folks in a white supremacist system. So it's certainly. I'm not a legal expert, and if you're truly in a situation where your life is threatened, if you're considering the legalities, you're probably not really in a life-threatening situation. Um, Actually, I'd say you definitely aren't in a life-threatening situation. Now, as far as like the guy with the chair in the video, I mean, I know the law won't see it this way, especially because he's a black man in a white supremacist system. But I'm not thinking he was really trying to hurt, because I mean he was not swinging, slicing with the chair, hitting, the edge. He was hitting flat, and and the thing is plastic seat, so I mean straight down, it's gonna hit the skull. Which granted, because there's no muscle between the skin, between the skin and the bone, yeah, that's gonna be physically painful. Might cause, some cuts, but it's not gonna do any real damage. Um, so even though the law probably wouldn't see it that way, it was that guy using excessive force or being particularly vicious. No, no. Um, but the chair meme, this comrade was saying, we should be more strategic, and I agree. And um, I do find a lot of the chair memes a little cringy, particularly the ones where the famous picture of Malcolm X by the window with the AK-47, where they've like switched that out with the chair. And to me, that is really cringy because um, it's stupid. I mean, I'm essentially thinking, oh, you want to bring a chair to a gunfight? Um, I support black liberation. I would hope, although rather unrealistically, that such can be achieved without violence, although that probably just is not going it's just probably unrealistic to think that that could happen. Liberation, revolution, and true equality for all people, for all the black and brown people of the earth, probably ain't gonna happen without violence, and probably some heavy violence. I hope it doesn't have to happen that way, but it's, probably not very realistic. So if you're going to strategize for it, don't bring a chair to a gunfight. You're gonna get yourself killed. Um, So now analyzing some of the other things about it, talking to a friend and comrade the other night, wondering if it was a psyop, just meant to divide, black and white. It could be. It could be. If it has, it's failed. I think. Like I said, given the show, the surprising amount of white solidarity uh, with the black folk in this. Um, mentioning like the throwing of the hat as a signal. Um, I don't know of that being any sort of code within the black community. To my black friends and comrades, if I'm wrong, and let me know, but I don't think it is. If anything, it seems like the guy, what would even make that scenario possible is it looks like he got left alone for a second to be able to think about throwing the hat. And then the fight commenced again. Um, so I'm not throwing out that possibility. Um, but there's also enough other chaos going on that I'm not necessarily convinced either. Um, far from it. Um, but not out of the realm of possibility. No one really in that video is a skilled fighter at all. Um, I don't think I saw anyone who looked like they really had any training whatsoever. Um, could it be acted? Yeah. And like I said, it's like he had a pause of the assault to be able to throw the hat, and maybe, and yeah, that could be a signal to other actors, if you want to call it that. But it could very well be a code that's not meant because it's like some whole big setup and psyop. But um, I do know there are a lot of signals that are used on ships. Okay, and this guy, it turned out, was actually the first mate of the boat that was trying to dock. So it could have been a signal, but if it was, you only had one person, the 16-year-old, who's getting a lot of fame for it, who swam. It's not like anyone else on the rest of the boat, and it, of course, asks the question of how did the first mate get off the boat? Okay, that's not answered. So there's definitely some questions to be answered there. Um, but so I'd say it's possible that it's a psyop, but I'd say it's less than likely. 20-25% throwing out a ballpark number. Um, you know, um, but the last thing I want to say, because when I don't think, I was in a situation that involved a chair that was real enough for me that I knew I could die and I was ready to kill. As much bullshit machismo and clear racism from the white folks who initially started it, as much as that bullshit, as much that kind of bullshit as there was, um, I didn't see anyone in that brawl who was at the point of being ready to kill. That's not to say that you should take it and people abuse you if they're not at that point, but no, they weren't. But before we have true equity in the world, yeah, there's probably going to be some killing. I hope not, but it's kind of the reality. But the last thing I want to say is, because when you are in that space where you're ready to kill, legalities, ethical concerns, even your attacker's race go out the fucking window. You're not thinking about them. You're not caring about them. It's just kind of survive or die. Luckily, I was able to survive without killing, without even having to strike. Just block, and that was it. And when you do get into that situation, you do what you got to do. But here's the final point that I think is the most important I want to make in this. This is in no way whatsoever a support of killer pigs. All these guys, what are their fucking names? I don't even want to remember their fucking names. The pig who shot Mike Brown, the pig who had his neck on George Floyd, had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, Derek Chauvin, it was Daniel Pantaleo, the guy who strangled Eric Garner. These guys are fucking murderers, plain and simple. Whenever you hear the pigs saying, "I feared for my life," and then you look at the objective reality and you realize that wasn't necessarily the case, that they really weren't threatened, okay, they're lying. They're not thinking mistakenly that they're in a life-threatening situation. They are completely fucking lying. Every one of them. Because when you are in a life-threatening situation, you know it. There's no ambiguity. It's not intellectual. It's instinct. You fucking know. And but the thing is, because this is just raw and instinctual, when it's over, you know it too. I was in a situation, yes, my life was threatened. But the second I saw them running, I knew. And it was over. I made sure I watched just so they didn't come back, But I knew that, I knew. It was over. You know it. But these motherfucking pigs who kill black people, who kill brown people, they're guilty of first-degree murder. Not second, because they're not enraged. They know full well they are not in danger, and they are able to calculate in their head that the system will protect them, and then they execute the plan. It might be a very short time from planning to execution, but there is that. They know what they're doing. And every one of those motherfuckers deserves a full sentence. Life in prison, death penalty. Every one of those killer pigs deserves that. Every one of them.